Hello and welcome again. My name is Kerry Moody and I work for the South East Leadership and Lifelong Learning team in the People Directorate. We are coming to you today as part of our role play for coaching in crisis. We're going to be working with you through this piece so that you can see what it might look like in real life. We are looking to support our South East coaching network with this piece of work, but understanding that it might be viewed wider than that. There'll be a link below in this YouTube video to the previous piece of work, which is around coaching in crisis and shows you other models. And there'll also be a link to our website and an email address for you to get in contact if you need to. I'm going to hand over now to Rebekah Giffney, who is one of our associates that we are working with on this piece, and she can set the broader context for you. Thanks, Rebekah.
Thank you. Thanks, Kerry. So we're going to demonstrate to you today a role play between a coach and an individual who we are going to call Kerry so that neither of us get confused. But Kerry is a manager of a team, and she is leading a clinical team that are currently working together in a clinical setting in response to the current COVID-19 pandemic. This is the second coaching session that I've had with Kerry, and we are going to show you an excerpt of the conversation that we're going to have. So we have already, take for granted that we've already done the contracting boundary conversation, and we've set the foundations for how we're working together. And we've also identified the goal for this coaching session, which is around Kerry wanting to focus on how she can maintain and support her own team's motivation during this period, and also her own, as she's feeling that all round her team and herself are starting to flag. They're getting quite tired, and actually it's about keeping spirits high and keeping going. So that's the goal for what we're going to focus on in this stimulated coaching session. And then at the end of the coaching session, we will, both Kerry and myself, as our real selves, will debrief that session and the tools we used and how we used it to bring out some of that learning in addition. Okay, so in a moment, we are going to make a start. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, Kerry, tell me what you'd like to explore today.
So I'm thinking about my team and how they are at the moment, and just that sense of, I don't know, their well-being, I guess, and how they're performing. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're doing a really good job, but I can sense something's different. Maybe their motivation, I can't really pinpoint it, but things feel different. It's hard to stay positive right now sometimes, and I think that's impacting on the whole team.
Yeah. So let's start there and let's explore that in a bit more detail. So Kerry, think about the last week where you've been working with your team, and just for the next 5 minutes, what we'll use is a positive psychology approach. Are you happy with having a go at this?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I'm keen to move us away from the negativity, but at the same time be realistic and not put on a face. So yeah, happy to have a go at that.
Okay. So let's just think for the next 5 minutes, all I want you to do is just have a think and share with me what have been 3 things that you have felt grateful for in relation to your team over the last week.
In relation to my team, okay. Well, I guess I'm thinking about the fact that they're all turning up. You know, at a time like this, it could be different, and they are turning up. So that's fantastic, actually, that they're able to do that. They're all coming in, and they all want to do their part. So that's really good. And I guess the other thing is I'm just thinking about something that's happened in the week. I won't go into detail about, but the way that they responded to an incident was so professional and so completely on it. We were all in the same moment. We were all doing the right thing and acting in the right way. And whether it's grateful or whether it's a sense of pride actually in seeing them and be able to stand back from that and see that the way that they are and how they've been has just been awesome. Really, really proud of them. So I guess that would be two things. The third, it's really hard, isn't it? But they make an effort to be present with each other. Mm-hmm. I know they're not doing it in quite the same way that we used to, but they're really trying to be there for each other when they can. We just don't get much time to do it.
Kerry, that's really powerful. How did it make you feel hearing that and sharing that with me?
Yeah, I guess it made me sort of stand back and think what a great job they are doing, and I hope they know they are, but just also recognizing that we're not having that conversation, because quite often we just don't get time to have that conversation. We're all focused on the next thing that we're doing, so it isn't something that I've said out loud, even though it's been in my thoughts.
So is there anything that you could do for yourself to help keep those things around what you're grateful for before when you are feeling less motivated?
Well, I guess it's remembering those things, and maybe there's sharing some of that as well, just saying it out loud, because saying it out loud now makes me feel better and makes me remember it. So that would be really good. You know, there might be a way that I need to connect with them more, not in a big team meeting, you know, we really don't have time for that right now, but just connecting with them as we go through the day, individually and together, and just recognizing some of that when the chances arrive.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you've touched on two things there. So one is definitely around, you talked about connection. So perhaps during our conversation, we might think about small ways in which you might want to support and increase those moments of connection. And before we get into that, I suppose, would it be useful just to explore, you mentioned at the beginning and through when you described how you were feeling, that a sense that motivation doesn't seem to feel like it has felt in normal times, or that it's slightly dropping. Is it worth just exploring that a bit more now before we move on to some more thoughts, because it might lead us into some thoughts around that notion of increasing connection? Yeah,
that would be good. Yeah.
So when you said before you saw the motivation is dropping, how do you know that? What are you seeing? What brings you to that sense that the motivation isn't the same as it sometimes is in a team?
It's really hard to pinpoint, isn't it? You know, I could think, well, maybe it's just my own reflection, but I guess that understandably I'm seeing less smiling, less chat, and I don't mean chit chat just in a false way, but just less talking to each other about things other than what we're doing in the moment, because it's always so there's always so much going on that we have to attend to, which is not about ourselves. So I guess it's some of that.
Yeah. Okay. So if you were to kind of assign a scale of this, so in a normal situation, in a normal time, so think back to kind of 3 or 4 months ago, if you were to say, consider your levels of motivation in your team, out of 10, where would you have put them at on a typical normal day?
Wow. Yeah, I think a good day is easily 8 out of 10. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And if we use that same scale now, where would you put them at the moment in terms of that level of motivation?
I think it's around a 5 or a 6, really. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And what makes you say that rather than it being lower than a 5 or a 6?
Okay, well, I guess that as far as their dedication is concerned, then that's absolutely still right up there. And as I said before, and mentioning the incident before, I know that we can all work together to get the job done. So the quality of their work and their dedication is even higher than it was previously. And the quality of their work is absolutely as I would always expect it to be, and as they always perform as a great team. So that accounts for a lot, which is, I guess, why I'm saying 5 or 6. And that's because that's part of the picture that's really important.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's fantastic that you know, their dedication, the quality, what you're seeing in terms of them, even in spite of the extreme difficult and challenging situations that people are currently working and functioning in. So what for you would make that 5 or 6 be a 7?
So I think it comes back to that piece before that I was talking to you about them connecting and working as a team, not just in what they are doing, because I know that it's really important that we just can't keep going at this pace without having something more, some sort of resilience to keep going. So I guess if I could see the hellos and the smiles and, you know, the ridiculous jokes that sometimes come out, which can feel a bit inappropriate at the moment, but maybe they're not. Maybe it's just we've all become very serious, and that's, I don't know, maybe that's just where we are at the moment.
So it's really clear that you're reflecting back to me some things that you said about the ridiculous jokes. So am I right in saying that those used to happen and they don't happen now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you work as a team and you work closely, then you have those, you know, those ridiculous, cheesy moments together that you wouldn't want to share with anyone else. But yeah, that it hasn't been like that recently, and I think we all miss that. You need a bit of light relief, don't you?
Yeah. So, is there anything that you're thinking, any small things that you're thinking that you could help to encourage moments of that with your team? Is there anything that you could do in terms of how you are on a day to day to get some glimmers of that kind of fun or lightheartedness in a team to help kind of take the lid off the pressure cooker a little bit?
So I guess it's striking that balance between walking in and telling a joke to actually going in and saying hi and just checking in with everybody. That would seem, I guess I've been coming in and immediately I've had questions and queries and it's been head down, and taking that time to connect with people as individuals and check in with them on a daily basis, and making sure that I get time to do that, because that's important, is probably the first thing I do.
Yeah. That's really powerful insight, Kerry, and really good reflection. So what do you think that you would, what action or what can you take away from what you've just shared with me in terms of what you might do tomorrow when you go back into working with your team?
So I was just thinking then about the jokes as well, and thinking actually some of it is it's my opportunity to say that that's okay, and to, you know, connect with people individually, but also just encourage them in a bit of that, encourage the people who would normally be doing that to say it's okay, and that, you know, we still have to do stuff for ourselves as a team, and allow some of that, I guess. So that will be one of the things, two of the things that I would go in with tomorrow.
Fantastic. And just reminding yourself around you mentioned at the beginning, we talked about, you raised around increasing those small moments of connection, as being something that, as you said, heads down, you're in, you're consumed with what's going on. So almost making time for those short, brief moments of connection where you come together as a team, sound like that might be a really useful thing to think about, taking forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and I think if I could do that, if I can go in with that in my mind at the start of the day, and check in with myself at the end, just as a reminder, I think that will be really helpful.
Okay. So I want to ask you something that might stretch you a little bit. So do tell me if you think it's too soon, or you feel it's a bit too difficult to answer. Okay. But I wondered if we could almost fast forward. Let's fast forward 12 months. So imagine so let's imagine we're 12 months from now, and you are reflecting back on the time where you are now. So you and your team, in terms of how you're coping and what you're feeling and what you've learned through this experience. What do you think you would be saying to yourself 12 months from now?
Hopefully I'll be saying to myself that this will not last forever. This too will pass, kind of thing. And so I guess just thinking that having the resilience to get through it well as we can. Mm-hmm. And I guess there's something about we will get back to, the people will be in the team, and for now, good enough is good enough, and we'll get to that stage where we'll all be back together again in a different way, but just making it good enough for now for us, as long as the care is the quality bit. That's what I'd be saying to myself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are the main things.
Yeah. So is there anything from that you think might be useful to take away and think about for now, to recognise now, rather than obviously we've just projected ourselves into the future, but you said a number of vital things there. Is there anything that you think you could start to utilise now in relation to your team and their motivation and yourself?
So I guess sharing some of that with them, as a recognition of where we are and that we will get through this, and just having that conversation more directly with them will be something that I would take forward, so that they can also think that, because it's not just for me, is it? It's for them. Mm-hmm. So being able to mm-hmm. have that conversation and let them look back from 12 months' time will be really helpful.
Fantastic. Are you happy to end there for the moment?
Yeah, thanks. That's been really useful, and there's some definite things in there that I can take forward. It's made it more practical. So I've got things that I can take away and feel that I'm going to be doing something that will help us all in our resilience in the team. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kerry. Okay, and pause. So that was just a small extract of a modelled conversation that might happen as part of a coaching session with someone. And we're just going to spend, Kerry and I are just going to spend a few minutes as ourselves debriefing that interaction, how it felt, and then also some of the process of some of the questions and how they link to threat versus reward-based thinking, in terms of how we were thinking about things in a slightly different way. So Kerry, what was being the coachee and the team leader, how did it feel in terms of that role play exercise and that coaching interaction?
Well, bar my acting skills. Yeah, no, it was. I was able to translate it into what I was doing. So at the same, or into my work as well. Although obviously it's very different. It is transferable in the working in the crisis. So, so that was useful. And as you know, we weren't drawing from a direct script, so I was thinking about that as we were going along, and I could see that actually. I think the stretching bit was the end bit. How will it look in the future, and how can I get there? And if we'd had more time, exploring that even more might have been really useful for me. But it was good to be able to see that, and to also for you to gently challenge me into what are you going to do with it, rather than just seeing it, was really useful.
Okay. So you would have heard through the course of our conversation that Kerry and I had that it was quite a gentle, gradual build up. So at the beginning, asking permission around using a particular approach, but also I think the other, and getting to focus on the positives, so the things that are grateful, and that question could have been about what's gone really well, what have you valued, what have you seen as a strength of your team. So again, supporting people to pick out the small moments or elements of positive amongst everything else that's going on. So again, moving them from that continuum of threat-based thinking across to gradually moments in that coaching session up to reward-based thinking. The other thing just that I wanted to highlight was in that interaction, we touched upon the use of a scale. So I invited Kerry to think about life in a normal context and how levels of motivation might have been versus now. And what I did as part of that was validate that actually the 5 that she sort of, so Kerry said, I'm about a 5 or 6. So recognizing that actually that's pretty good. So asking the question, oh, okay, so why is it not lower? So highlighting again, to be at a 5, there are clearly things that are being sustained and maintained in levels of motivation. And then the question around, okay, so what would it take to move one step more? So to be a 6 or a 7, rather than saying, okay, so what will it take you to get back up to 8? Again, it's about the small incremental things that just nudge a person into, okay, so what are the small things? And from that came that notion of connection and actually being focused. And so again, it's the subtlety of some of your questioning as coaches that you will do naturally, and just supporting that gentle movement into moments of that reward-based thinking where you're thinking about you're opening up possibilities, you're thinking about life from different perspectives. So be that around time, so being 12 months forward, what would you look back and say to yourself or about your team or recognize? So those moments and those questions just were helped to gently move the flow of that conversation forward, ultimately then into, we would have gone on, if this had been real life, gone on into, again, exploring probably in a bit more detail each of those, but also around the actions and the next steps and the practical things as well.
And actually what I noticed that's different from how I might usually use the scale thing. So when I'm coaching, I might say, and where do you want to be? So they might say, I want to be an 8. But I can see how useful it is to think about one step forward, particularly in coaching in crisis. So that really makes sense to me now. So one step, because if you were asking me how do I get to be an 8, it was too big a gap when I'm feeling under so much pressure. And that's just my, oh, it's just clicked. So thanks for that.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. And I think it's about remembering one of the big drivers around that we talked around in the first video was around the scarf. So the key components that people are anchoring to. And one of the ones Kerry brought very much in that discussion was around relatedness. So highlighting the need for connection and the subtext around the sense of her team coming together and creating moments of connection and moments that link back to what life was like when there wasn't this increased pressure and heightened emotion. So again, for me as a coach, I had that model of scarf in my head, and I could see through our conversation how some of the things around autonomy, control, relatedness were coming up. So when Kerry was talking around, actually, when I go in and I'd head down, the subtext was around that the subtext around that was that things are coming at her. And so gently through the questioning was around supporting her to think about, well, so what small things can you do to increase those moments of connection? So again, helping in that scarf model to balance out the relatedness versus control in terms of if one is being hampered, how can there be practical small things an individual can do to balance some of those different components that can be quite strong emotional triggers for us in our everyday life. Okay, so thank you very much, Kerry, in taking part in that. Any final closing remarks?
Only to everyone out there, I guess, just to say that, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is sort of part 2, where we're showing you an example of coaching in crisis. So please do look in the comments below and check out the previous video that we've done, and feel free to email us and connect with us, and you'll see some links to some other work that we're doing as well. So some of that will be more from a line manager point of view, so feel free to get in touch. Thanks, Rebecca, again for all your hard work, and bye for now.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye.